Hello, everybody. It's your host, Lim Louise Morrison. So welcome to the Empowered Life video series. Get present, find your joy, and master the confidence to go after your dreams. And I'm super excited to welcome Sarah Jane Farrell with us today. And before we jump in, I'll let you know a little bit about Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane is a love warrior who helps people and animals to trust and love themselves again, to reclaim the confidence to own their worth and know that they are enough, no matter what anyone else says, including their own saboteur voices. They learn to identify their blind spots, fear-based, self-sabotaging patterns, and unconscious commitments that keep them feeling stuck, exhausted, and depressed, so that they can transform their old victim stories and trauma into truth and triumph. Because when you rewire your nervous system and stop the fight or flight or freeze by creating your own safety you never had as a child, you have a strong mind of your own to live a fulfilled, deeply happy, purpose-driven life. So how does it get any better than that, Sarah Jane? Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really thrilled that you're here with us.
Oh, it's an honor to be here, and I love what you stand for and living an empowered life. I mean, that's what we're all after. So I'm so grateful that you're creating this container for people to actually step up and rise up and claim their sovereignty.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So am I. I'm really thrilled to be doing this. So, Sarah Jane, for anyone who hasn't met you before, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Do I have to?
No? Okay.
Yeah. I'm an ordinary girl, you know. It's just like I think that we all come in here and we think we have a life that's set out for us, and we're just going to go and follow the programming and do what we're supposed to do and be a good girl. So I kind of grew up like everybody else, average and doing the best that I could with what I had. But I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in, that something was missing in my life. And I think as a child, when we're so sensitive and we know that our first line of communication is energy, when people don't like your energy, or you're saying stuff that you shouldn't know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, tend to shut down and become a people pleaser. So I was the real good little girl and much preferred the company of animals to people, because people were intense and they weren't ready for me clearly. So it took me a long time to get to the point where I could actually stand in my truth. And I still have my days where I go back into my old default patterns. But
Mm-hmm.
sensitivity and looking at intuitive gifts and capacities. I know we speak the same language of, what if everywhere you saw yourself as wrong was actually your strength and what makes you you in your
Yeah.
true. So that was it. It's just like it's been a big messy experiment. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I think it's a wonderful time that we're living in now as women, to really be coming together like this and starting to shift our focus to what do we stand for? What does light us up? What makes me feel like I am in my own power? And that's really been my work with trauma resolution. As I've always lived in countries that have been at war on some level or another. I grew up in Zimbabwe during a time where there was a big bush war going on, and I tend to be living in a country now. I'm in South Africa, where violence and fear and lack and scarcity are the things that are disempowering people, where people are feeling very shut down and disempowered by the state of affairs and governments. And I know you guys in America are kind of getting a sense of what Africa has been going through for the last, I don't know, 40 years. Mugabe's been in power in Zimbabwe. And now you have Trump to really show you that it's time for us to shine our light stronger than ever, because we have to own those parts of ourselves that we've been keeping in the shadows. So this work is important now more than ever.
Yeah. And we had a really brief comment before we started here about, I brought in the get present piece because whether it's, what's going on in the US or, in South Africa, and, we've gone through the apartheid age and all of that, those of us that are, I'll say our age and older or whatever. And so whether it's something personal in someone's life or like the, your overall environment of your country or whatever, so it could be something super close to you or just your overall environment, a lot of people just live their lives on autopilot. And so I was hoping you could address that piece a little more.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing. I see this a lot in horses. Is that there's a part of us that is just like the horse. We are magnificent, powerful beings, and we've been programmed into living from our heads. From this
Yes.
place of thinking ourselves up
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling, not getting a felt sense of moving towards what we want and away from what we don't. So we're always fighting against, and there's this resistance. This is part of being human. Is this part of, well, if I'm not being seen, if I'm not being heard, then I'll just shut down.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of learned helplessness of, well,
Yeah.
what's the point? And I still go there a lot. I grew up being very, very anxious and feeling that sort of deep depression on not that was not always mine, but I think as
Mm-hmm.
intuitive that's we feel
Yeah.
it a lot. And the power of the choice is, do
Mm-hmm.
I sit down or do I fight? And that's built into our wiring, right? We're wired
Yeah.
to fight, flight, or freeze. And how do we navigate our way around that? Well, I think for women, it's getting very clear on why what we want, not denying our own desires,
Mm-hmm.
not feeling like we have to give ourselves up because of it being judged as selfish or judged as that we can't trust ourselves and our own intuitive gifts, and we
Yeah.
give power over to outside forces where the environment is what actually shapes us into feeling traumatized in the first place. We've all been shaped by our environment. I always say we're the gun and the environment is the trigger. So
Yeah.
it's I think it's just this constant readjustment, being flexible, in how we stand in our depth of being brave and of being courageous enough to say, actually, no, this is not going to kill me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love
Because we're
that.
because we're being afraid of rejection. Um, we don't have the eyes on us like we did in the old days of tribe, where we knew that we had each other's backs. We're not living like that anymore. We've separated out from nature. We've separated out because we've given ourselves a psychic lobotomy and trying to use our minds to feel instead of feeling our way through life. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do is start using choice as an amplifier, not
Mm-hmm.
a place to shut us down. Because you're right. The big pharma want to treat depressions of sensitivity rather than saying, go deep down and feel this. We want to medicate it away. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of shame in that.
Oh, yeah. And women particularly are not brought up to be, in many instances, I don't want to, paint everything with this broad brush, but so much of, you know, not to step into their power, like not to be, seen or heard or, all of that. And when you get that shut down, that also, I think, leads a lot of people to checking out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not being willing to be seen and to be powerful and to step into their empowerment where, it's like, oh, so again, so many women are just brought up to be, don't be too big, don't be too loud, don't be too powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. Too
And
big, too big, too much, too loud.
yeah, all of that.
Yeah, and of course there's a lot of fear and anxiety around that because it's built into our familial and our ancestral trauma as women
Mm-hmm.
to be quiet, to keep ourselves alive. We used to be burned for being medicine women. We were cut down. We were made wrong by that. And there's a lot of places in the world today that are still where women are still feeling that they are disempowered because they don't have a voice, because it's not safe. So I think, the more of us that are rising into this space of saying, I see you and I honor you, and I can love whatever arises as a place to lean into the pain that makes us powerful. We have to feel in order to heal. I was going to say that because we kind of think that if we avoid pain, that we're going to actually for me in my work and in my own experiences, we have to feel everything.
Yes.
And not be afraid of it, right? Follow our body's natural impulse to show us how to trust our bodies, show us how to trust our in the divine, trust in other people. If without trust, we have nothing. So, I say trust, don't rush into it. Make the commitment to be responsible for your life through being aware of what is, not from a place of victimology.
Yeah.
Of, well, I can't change this, or it's too big for me. Even when a lot of times it feels like we're fighting against thunder, as we say here.
Yeah.
It's just like your peace matters, but know
Yeah.
that you're only responsible for the peace that you hold.
Yeah.
We're all connected by this beautiful red thread, and we're all weaving into this tapestry of raising up consciousness. But you're only responsible for the peace that you hold. And the beautiful thing is connectedness is you need to be willing to pull on that thread and ask for help. There's no shame in asking. You have to be willing to ask and to recognize that we're not alone. And I think that's the biggest thing that separates us out from feeling like we can't step into our power. Is that if I do, what is the contrast of that experience going to be? And we always seem to look at what we're going to lose, don't we? Rather than what we're going to do this.
And not only, and what I get is not only gain for yourself, but the more each woman, each person steps into their own power, they're inviting other people into being that and being the fullest version of themselves that they can be. And so many people, and again, women, aren't willing to do that. And what if more women understood that by us doing that, we're an invitation to others? And I get that how stepping into that too, and like being fully who you are, I got how these pieces all fit together. Like how, if you are checked out and you're not stepping into who you are, how can you find your joy? Because when you step into that, to me, your true joy comes from within. Yes, it can come from outside circumstances as well, but if you want it truly to last, it has to come from within. And I know with a lot of the work that you do, that's what that creates.
Absolutely, because without, again, it comes back to trust. We can't cultivate self-trust unless we're being brave. And yet bravery in the past meant persecution and death.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot in the unified field of not just the feminine, but as a collective. You're absolutely right, is that if I can't see the power in me, I can't meet you in your own power. And this is where, I don't know about you, but growing up, I did not have a very fun time with other girls or other women. Because there's always this thing of, well, if you shine too much, as if there's a lack of shining in the world, that somehow you diminish me.
Yeah.
This is, I've been on a mission for years to really get women to see that we can go so much further together when we all just embrace and celebrate each other's pieces. Bring something unique to the table. There's only one of us.
Yeah.
And no one else like you, just like your fingerprints are unique. Your frequency that you're emitting out into the world as a receiver as well as a transmitter is unique to you. And this is how we raise this beautiful harmonic frequency of divine light and love and trust back into the world, is in the collective. So I think we're finding each other.
Yeah. And I think when you have all of that together too, and I love how you talk about the trust, because when you have, when you trust you, then you are confident and you can go after your dreams. Because I find so many women, again, the clients I talk to, they don't have the confidence to go after their dreams, or they just look at whatever it is that they want to create in their lives. And it could be a business, it could be something personal, it could be something creative, like, authors. And I've talked to some authors and things. And a lot of it is they don't have the confidence, or like, who am I to do this, or whatever that is. And they're worried about, I think, equally being judged. And I think they're also worried, as they say, one of the biggest fears is success, because they've decided what that's going to be, what's that going to look like. And also, like, when they have success of going after their dreams, is it worth the judgment that they have decided they're going to receive? Like, who are you to do whatever it is?
Yeah, yeah. And you're so right. A lot of the time, that's sort of been passed down through generations, or the
Mm-hmm.
generation trauma, or the perception and the judgments and the projections that you received as a child, that always have shame underneath them.
Yeah.
And that's the part where it's just like, you have to know that you're the authority of your own life. And we can know that cognitively, intuitively. We know that we're powerful, but there's always this fear of, if I do, what is the consequence going to be? And that's, I think, the part where I mean, we could talk about this forever. It's the
Mm-hmm.
judgment. It sounds easy to do. But it's not always that simple, because we're doing this dance with other people. Through connection, we get to figure out how we fit into the tribe and create safety. We're always looking for safety. So
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that Brene Brown speaks of that as braving. So it's like, you courage isn't something, or confidence isn't something that we get outside of ourselves. It has to come from the deep down. And it has to come from that place of looking at the wisdom that we've learned through the mistakes, the takes that we've tried, the choices that we've tried, as nothing to be ashamed of, but as something that grows us, and not go into the victimology of disempowering what we want to show up for us. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a feeling, isn't it? Before we formed the thought to speak the words, or spell it into being, which is what we do when we speak, we've already got a preconceived idea of it, based on not following our body's natural impulse, which just always wants us to thrive. We kind of go against our true nature all the time, because it goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of theory of, if you don't have the safety and the
Mm-hmm.
basic essentials, you never get into the creative aspect of actually sharing your gifts with the world, because you get stuck in this sort of base chakra, or the roots of what are you growing? Are you fertilizing your soil? Are you looking after tending to your inner garden?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you looking outside of you to find a way to make you feel good enough to take care of yourself? So I guess now we're
Yeah.
we're into self-care, and this whole notion around authenticity that's being kicked around so much these days is, for me, it's the question is always, how do we find that special place of truth within ourselves? And we have to look at how we define authenticity and empowerment and confidence and all these things we think we want,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's speaking about it, to what does it mean for me to be truly brave enough to stand in my own truth,
Yeah.
regardless of what other people are choosing.
So if I were to ask you, what does that mean to you? Like, how would you describe either how you define it, or what empowerment is to you? I know, big question, right, Jane?
Yeah, so again, if you just sort of feel into that, what is being in my personal power mean to me? And if you just kind of take a minute and you just kind of scan your body and notice where you're holding tension when you think about what that would mean, to me, that it's a feeling of not fighting against my natural impulse to show up and be the best that I can be.
I love that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Not going against your natural impulse. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're resisting resist who we are at the core all the time, based on the programming and what other people have projected on us as how we need to be in order to be accepted and not rejected. It hasn't, our brain hasn't evolved that much since, thousands of years ago. The reptilian part of our brain is still working on that, to not be part of a tribe or a collective.
Mm-hmm.
So we often negate our natural body's intelligence to move towards the people and the places and the things that lift us up and grow us, just like a village would.
Mm-hmm.
Shut down, and we go against that. And our souls don't care about what's convenient for our egos, and yet we constantly go out of alignment with what's convenient to the ego, what's convenient, not to make waves, like you said earlier. I don't want to make waves. I hear so many women go, they don't know who they are anymore, because they've adopted every kind of coping mechanism and every kind of addiction, including perfection as an addiction, to fit in. And then when the kids leave home, or they leave the corporate world, or they go into a place, or they get divorced, they suddenly go, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Because they've been living for and through everyone else.
And not feeling into the desire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beautiful part about it, is when you really can get clear about what is it that I want, when I really feel into my soul and my heart and the purpose of what do I love being, the doing comes, right? That the big why is the most important thing, in a generative way. Not why is this happening to me, but why is not a very good question. It's just like, how can I be better than I was yesterday? How can I expand into that? How can I create more connection? And that's the braving part, isn't it? Of having the courage, which is cur, is from the Latin word, is to feel the fear and go anyway. Because the fear always teaches us something. Just as pain always teaches us something. So I think when you start to focus on the 1 degree shifts, and we move towards what we want and celebrate the small wins, then we can actually, in the present moment, which is the trust for me of appreciating who I'm being. That's empowerment. Because you're emptying out all the crap, and you're standing in this place of being the best that you can be, moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. I like how you said that, appreciating who I'm being.
Because we're so quick to look at where we're wrong, aren't we, all the time? We're always looking at, oh gosh, I could have done this better. And I think this is an epidemic amongst women.
Oh, guilty. Yes. Yeah. I do it all the time, and I don't catch, sometimes I catch myself and sometimes I don't.
Yeah, me too. Because that and that can be quite interesting too, because I think that can be an aspect of empowered living. When we look at that, but not from a critical lens, is from a lens of the observer of, if I was being not in my right mind, but in my body, what would change? And then listening to your body's impulse to move you forward.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking mind. And that's why I love the trust process, because it's a place where you just get to stand in that luminal space, that 0 point field of just the space of what else is possible. Because I appreciated what has worked up until now, and I've appreciated what hasn't worked too, so that we can amplify into that, not go into the guilt and the blame and the shame and the victimology of, oh, why bother? Or,
yes,
I'm too tired, which is the default pattern of shame.
Yes. And I love how you keep bringing it back into tapping into your body, because I know for all my life I lived from the neck up. Like, I didn't really include my body into my, well, I didn't even understand, it wasn't even part of my world, like the awareness that I have through my body and tapping into my body and tapping into my knowing. And yeah, so
it's so common too, isn't it? Because we're taught and we're rewarded in this world. No, my dog is crying at the window. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
We're rewarded for problem solving. as children. So we start to create problems that don't exist anywhere other than in our minds as a way of also getting attention, of saying, okay, you did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not creating problems, and I see this again with a lot of women, especially when they're not distracted by keeping everybody else happy and healthy, and when it's just that space of going deep down and listening, that the resistance starts to show up, because it feels frightening to actually tap into what you want.
Yes.
It's easy to live above the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And then we wonder why our bodies start breaking down later on, because we've been totally disconnected from our bodies and from nature. I think that's another thing, is that we've forgotten that we are part of the bigger web of life, that we are our internal climate is often reflected in our external environment. So if we are seeing things going on in our body, oftentimes that'll show up in the people and the places and the things that come to us, because what do they say? What you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever we are looking at as a wrongness is always going to just show us how wrong we are, and our bodies are always going to make us right. And this is the word
Yes.
that I love, where he says, the body eventually is going to say no. And we don't want to get to the point where our body's in chronic breakdown before we actually start to get present with what we need for ourselves and how to nurture and take care of ourselves. And self-care is the first thing most women give up, right? Because there's nothing left at the end of the day, because and I think that's where boundaries are so important. We have to trust that we're reliable to ourselves first before we can actually start empowering other people. We have to honor the fact that we do what we say we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We show up regardless of the circumstances, that we don't have to give ourselves up and go into meaning making or self-identification of being something other than ourselves, because that is disease at its essence, is going against your true nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we have to remember, don't we, all the time? And for me, it's a constant minute by minute process of, oh my gosh, where did I just go? Where did I just go into the past or into the future? And noticing is how contracted that feels, or how expansive that feels in our bodies. And as children, until we're told that it's not okay to be omnisexual and omnipresent, we really do know how to follow our body's impulses.
Yeah. And just so be in the moment. Like, kids, you don't have to talk to kids about being present.
No, not at all. In fact, most of the time we make them wrong as adults. I certainly have done this with my daughter, of, in my own self-importance, to say, not now, I'm busy. But she's actually showing me where I'm out of incongruence with myself, because I'm not being present with her.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone off somewhere in my head, and it's so not important. I think out of all of this, the empowerment really is that ability to be with whatever arises in the moment and love it, even when you love it anyway.
I love that. I can't believe how fast our time has gone by here. But I think, be present in the moment and love it, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I don't want to forget about this, Sarah Jane. You have offered an amazing free gift to our audience. Can you tell us what that is, please?
Absolutely. I love to. I always say connection is my currency, and I think the best invitation that I could give today was just to invite people into a 30-minute clarity discovery session with me, to work on any aspect of where they perhaps are feeling stuck, or they can use it if they want to look at that with their animals, because I think animals are such great mirrors of where we're standing in the lies of our own and they oftentimes also suffer the consequences of that through health and behavioral issues. So by helping yourself, you're going to help the people that you love more, including your animals, and really deepen into right relationship with yourself. So I'd love to invite anybody that would like to see how I work and what this work entails, to book a conversation with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Do you have any parting words that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Gosh, what do I say to living an empowered life is just to trust yourself, because when you know that, then you start to, when you are what you love, then you don't have to love what you think you're going to lose.
I love that.
We just say, know that you are love, not what loves you.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful way to wrap this up. Sarah Jane, thank you so much for being with us today. And so much wisdom in such a short time. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for more interviews to come. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye for now.